going to be good enough?
Yeah.
Not really.
How are things in Sacramento?
Oh, hi. You talking to me, Keith?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they're pretty good. I don't go there anymore. You know, I live in Nevada City, and
Oh.
it's beautiful up here.
Oh, okay.
But
Oh,
since
Sacramento. I'm sorry. I should have said
yeah,
Nevada City. I think
That's
of
okay.
I think Sacramento, but it's not really Sacramento.
yeah, it's cold and blustery right now. But we've had some snow, and still feels like winter, but it's beautiful. Glad to be here.
Yeah. How far is Nevada City from Auburn?
Well, actually, our daughter just moved there, so we drive there several times a week. It's about 35 to 40 minutes away.
Oh,
Okay.
that's great.
All right.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, they just moved up from Sacramento or from San Diego, and we have a new grandson, and so it's just wonderful. We get to be there several times a week.
That's
great. Great. We have a new grandson coming as well, by the way.
You do? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
When?
At the end of June.
Oh, is this your first grandchild?
Yes.
Oh. I can't
So
wait to
excited.
talk to you later, like in 6 months after that. It's just so beautiful. And
Yeah.
you know, I was just reflecting on purity of mind, and oh goodness, that's what our little grandson is, just this little pure mind.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm so thrilled for you both.
Thank you.
Well, we're thrilled for us too. And it's a boy, so we'll be like you. We'll have a grandson.
Yeah. Oh, what a joy.
Yeah. All right. We're looking at the gallery. Nikki, Tanya, and Sheena. Hello, everybody. Hi, Barbara. And Paul.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome, everyone. Is it time to start? I think it may be.
We're at the moment where people are having a rough hour joining the meeting at the moment. If you give it another maybe a couple of minutes, and then
Okay.
where you want to take it. Cool.
I understand that.
We here in the States, you know, we switched to daylight saving time, so everything is. We lost an hour of sleep. That's
That's the bottom line.
that's the bottom line. Yeah.
The chair.
Hmm?
That chair that I've been looking at over there.
Oh yeah. We have new developments across our the street in front of us, and so we're a little bit distracted. New buildings and new fence paintings and stuff like that. So where do we start?
I don't know. I think it might read something. I think it says look for.
Oh no.
Oh, I hope not. I don't know. Where would you like? Anybody got any questions? Any thing they'd like to say?
This is a town hall, so
I have a question.
Oh yes, okay.
Great.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Phil. Really love the model, the paradigm. I just wondered if you could say anything about its relationship to identity, as identity and ideas we have about ourselves seem to play into so much of our interpretation of the world. And I'd love to hear what you might have to say about that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's a great question. I don't have a clue what the answer is yet, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Well, the inside out, you know, when we say the inside out that Sid referred to uh, often, um, he was talking about, like I remember him saying once that the church has an approach to rediscover your soul, and but but there's a psychological way that is involved with finding yourself, your true identity. And he said, when I say true identity, I don't mean your little ego, your little self, your where you know your name and your address and your history. I'm talking about the actual your actual true identity, um, which he would call self sometimes, or he would call it God sometimes. But it was I found that to be really, really powerful and really, really helpful to for me to and see how the self was who I really who I am and who everyone is really searching for is that self um, and 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 he really saw that when people find that self that they're uh, the curtain of ignorance of who they really are and what they really are is is lifted and lifted and lifted and such that you keep discovering um, a deeper wisdom and a deeper consciousness, a deeper um, connection, the missing link, and he found that, as he often said too, through thought. That thought, so everyone is equipped to find that self. It's just for me when I heard him say self, an order of self of that simplicity, ultimate simplicity. It removed uh, ignorances of my little problems and my little fears or doubts or jealousies or envies, all the psychological things that the outside in psychology has always labored with. And that's why we call it a different paradigm, or the actual paradigm of psychology is the inside out, because it's uh, it's based on truth that is the wisdom of the ages, not based on research or theories or concepts or beliefs, which are ultimately create a victimhood because there's a split. So if I've got a problem with authority or a problem with insecurity so there's a split, and to heal that split you have to find true self, and that removes the illusion of separation. So there's the missing link. Thought is the missing link that removes the illusion of separation between your 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 psychological life and your spiritual life. That illusion causes all manner of the illusion of a split. It's an illusion, but believed in, it causes all manner of psychological unrest and niggling, disorientation, and searching, and because and it can't be resolved by searching, because it's not it's an illusion in the first place. So he saw that illusion and realized the nature of that illusion of a separation. And to him, it was so simple, that he just felt like he wanted to. He would just tell people, and they would go, "Oh, thank you very much," and a lot of people did, but still, a lot of people didn't, and so it he, I've mentioned this to people before, but he thought, I'll tell someone, and they'll tell someone else, and they'll tell someone else, and within 6 weeks there'll be peace on earth, because it will remove that uh, un, unfounded antagonism, unfounded separation between who you really are and who you think you are, or your small mind, or you could say your small mind and big mind. But that was not to be so easily communicated. So all of us that have run into the principles are experiencing that and finding our way to less and less of a psychological separation, which is a paradigm, because the old psychology, what I call the old psychology, or the outside in psychology, or the mixed paradigm psychologies, are not a whole psychology. It's a psychology that's forever split, because it has no foundation in principles. Its foundation is beliefs and ideas, concepts, and what happens to you early on in childhood, or what have you. So that can't be reconciled. There's no truth to it at the bottom. And Sid realized the truth of that lack of separation. And furthermore, he said at one point, there's a little dialogue that I'm fond of, that someone asked him, well, why? It seems like my true self would be something so attractive, or so compellingly interesting, that I would be. Well, what he said was, what's with it, with all this fear? I have fear, and why would I be afraid of finding myself? It would seem like that fear would be it would be nothing to me. And he said, well, the fear you're talking about is the fear of the death of your ego. And that is and the person said, oh my God, that is so dead on, but it's surprisingly beneficial to me when I consider that's what that is. And Sid said, well, when you see this, you realize that you've really, somewhere in the back of your mind, you've known this all along. And so it seems, while it seems silly to have thought it, you certainly did, and you certainly believed it. He said you wouldn't believe your true self. So finding that integration is really what we're all celebrating and sharing and communicate with anyone who will listen. And so it's funny to wipe out an illusion, isn't it? Like, you'd think an illusion would be an easy thing to dispute or dispel. But the paradigm we've been in is in a split. And that makes it especially tricky and hard because people think that they think they kind of come from it split. So when you come from it split, you want techniques or methods or you're searching for something to heal the split, but you don't really realize the splitness that you're in is the whole problem entirely. And so that's been the blessing of our challenge is to help people realize that illusion of self, of a small self. That who would think that that little ego thing would be the cause of all these troubles, all these human troubles worldwide, all the wars, all the judgments, etc., would be would be cured by the death of the ego, but the fear of the death of that causes insecurity. And as we go forward, we're learning this, we're learning more about it. What I think you'll find is the death of your ego is nothing to be afraid of at all, because it never existed in the first place. You just thought it did. So the ego is a thinking, small-minded creation, and furthermore, when you see that that's what it is, you'll find that in the inside out, there really isn't any fear. In the inside out, there's no fear, and if fear ever occurs, you realize it's just thought, and it dissipates and disappears because it doesn't. You know it for what it is, and it has it doesn't have any cachet or any sort of currency, or it's like it's like a currency that doesn't. It's worthless, and so you recognizing it in the moment, that insecurity, fear, doubt, jealousy, envy, all the Pandora's box of all those human illusions, when they arise, they quickly lose their. You see, they're just thought, and they go away. I guess I had a lot to say about that.
Yes, you did. And I hope they notice mine is remarkably brief in comparison.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm 71 years old now. I met Sid
72, actually.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'm 72 now. I'm really resisting this 1 year, aren't I? And we were around 25 when we met Sid. And boy, it was a shock. Things, long held beliefs, he was just bashing them, and it's like just breaking them down in a way that I could see. And I thought, oh no, I'm wrong again. How many things am I going to be wrong about? And a lot of what he said was so far out there. I just realized, look, I'm not going to understand all this. Just get over it. I don't even, that's fine. There's enough going on here that I don't have to understand every bit of it. And then 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, I'd be walking along or driving along, and I'd have an insight about something he said 40 years ago. And he said, it'll come to you when it'll come to you. And I'd think, okay, that's what I'm going to have to count on, because I don't really have a clue what you're talking about. But anyway, so about 12 years ago, I watched a show on PBS about, it was about geometry, and it was about there's natural, um, what should I call it? Natural, what of a fractal? The
Maybe
natural
a
form.
natural geometry, or
Okay, natural.
a geometry that would measure clouds and forests and shorelines, all these things that were not measurable by any ordinary means whatsoever, any ordinary geometry.
Yeah.
It was a new geometry.
Any ordinary man-made geometry, which was all straight lines and circles and things like that. So they happen upon this strange looking thing that's called a fractal, and it's natural. And once they see it, they start seeing it everywhere. It's like, oh, look, they see it all through nature. And I'm sitting there watching it, and it had beautiful language. And I thought, this is what happened to Sid. He saw something that nobody else had seen. And then it was put upon him to give it his best to try to teach them, share with them. And what just hit me, it's like I knew that a paradigm means one. If it means anything, it means one. And I thought, that man, he's, I know he always told us this, but I didn't really catch on. And I thought, there is only one way this stuff happens. And so it just took so much off of my mind. I felt like these huge icebergs were just falling off of me and melting away. And then I had no idea any of this was going to happen. I was as surprised as anybody. And as they were falling away, my mind became quieter. And what happened for me was I had always, my whole life, even since I was a little girl, I had wished that I could have thoughts of God more often. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew it'd be a good idea. And so all of a sudden, I start having thoughts of God more often without any effort, just coming to me. And I thought, this is that thing I've always wanted. And so it just broke itself into inside out and outside in, that if where our experience is coming from, it's coming from thought in the moment. And that's the one and only way it's coming. And how much it took off my mind, I never imagined. I would have tried to learn it earlier, but I just didn't know what would be waiting there. I had no idea it would be something spiritual. I don't know why I didn't, but I didn't. So that for me simplified my life and my thoughts so much. Oh, all the changes were unbelievable. I could listen better. I could talk better. I was more compassionate. And I wasn't trying to be any of these things. I thought I was fine the way I was. If you'd asked me, how do you think you're doing? I would have said, pretty darn good. So it just, I loved how much it took off my mind. I didn't know that was going to be possible, and that I'd have to wait 40 years. I mean, I had pieces of it, and I could just go along with it, but to see it myself, that was thrilling. And to this day, 12 years later, it's like clear. It's so clear. And I get along better with my husband. I'm nicer. He likes that a lot. I get along better with my daughter. I'm easier to get along with. and I wasn't awful to begin with, you know. So that's mine. Anybody else want to say anything? Oh, I see somebody's right. I can't tell whose name it is. I think it's Barbara.
Britt can spot it.
Hi,
Okay.
hi, this is Barbara. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so both of you just mentioned that humans, when they feel fear, that the fear they're feeling is just due to their thinking. And of course, this paradigm in general points to the understanding that all feelings come 100% from thought in the moment. Period, exclamation point. Is that accurate? Is that correct?
Yeah, she's gonna go to the fear. I can already tell.
Sorry, what?
I said you're gonna go to the fear thing.
Well, wait, so is that correct? Because what I'm trying to do, I have this like dangler that has been coming up with me as it relates to the paradigm that I'm wondering if you guys could help clarify.
Okay.
Oh, here. It's not coming from circumstances, someone else. This is the distinction we're trying to make. What are some of the other things about the outside in?
Well, the world, the situation, but it's coming from ego. Ego is and it's hard if you know that that's the source of it. And the ego is afraid of its own death. It's afraid of its own meaninglessness. So that is the source of the fear. So people can be in dire circumstances and situations, obviously, without fear. So fear is induced by anything other than ego, an image of self.
So actually, my question is, let's say for a person who's had a lot of different traumas in their life, let's say they've had, and let's say they've had a handful of very significant, profound traumas, very, very significant.
Okay.
And let's say their experience is not that. Yes, sometimes their experience is that they'll have thinking it's the thinking that then leads to the fear or to the anxiety. But sometimes there is no thinking. What there is maybe.
Excuse me, but there's never a time that there is no thought. Thought is a constant. So it's an unconscious thought that they're suffering.
Okay,
It's not a cognitive, this is not, the thought we're talking about is not cognitive. It's not I had that thought and I had that feeling. It's spiritual. It's a spiritual power that you've been putting things into since you were born, and they have too. So there's no difference between them and you. And by the way, too, the trauma research people have always been puzzled by the fact that they couldn't account for the fear that people felt by the circumstances and events they went through. So all the research all says there's something we don't know about the cause of trauma, the cause of fear, that adversity does not create distress. It's not a one-to-one thing. And that one-to-one thing is because they're in the wrong paradigm. They're in the paradigm of cause effect of the traditional psychology that you're talking about, that's what causes the fear. And they don't think they're thinking, but they are thinking. We're all thinking all the time. So consciously, Sid defined the mind as a power that acts as a catalyst and turns thought, whether conscious or unconscious. If you just posit that unconscious thought, I suggest that people will, even trauma victims, will begin to realize that it is thought. It is. And as they see that more, it will calm them down, because if it's not thought, they're left to their imaginations of what happened to me. And there's a victim psychology in the outside in psychology. There's no victims in the inside out psychology.
So my question though was that some people who've experienced a lot of profound traumas, their experience is it could be subconscious like you're saying, but their real life experience is that they don't have thought first. Instead, what they have is just a visceral,
No.
they're just doing their life, and suddenly something happens as a trigger. There's no conscious thought, and suddenly they're just feeling.
I'm talking about a spiritual power.
So can you extend on the definition of spiritual power?
Well, the three principles are the spiritual powers of mental life: mind, consciousness, and thought. And
Right.
they're neutral powers. They're not psychological. They're not in the paradigm of the psychological world that we've been taught that is the truth. So you're talking about that cognitive, conscious thought, thinking, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about these powers that are pre-existent, that are not of this world, not of this world of of of, of, um, of things and concepts and beliefs. We're talking about beyond belief. There's a power. There are powers, and we all are product. We all are connected to those powers, whether we like it or not. And we put things into those powers, and we feel accordingly. We experience accordingly, but it fills that gap that I was mentioning in the old psychology, which cannot be filled because they're looking for it in the wrong place. They're looking for it in the cognitive world. The thought we're talking about is not cognitive.
So then you're saying that for people who don't have any conscious thinking, but they just have triggers that then they feel the feelings of, they feel filled with fear without having any conscious thinking. You're saying that those visceral, the tightening in their chest, the thumping of their heart, all of those things that they suddenly experience without any conscious thought, you're saying that can you just complete that sentence? So like for those people, what's really happening for them that's creating the fear is?
Well, it's thought. It's still thought, but it's not the thought that you're thinking of. Let me put it that way. It's another dimension of thought, a spiritual dimension of thought, not a traditional or psychological or cognitive or all the beliefs we have about thinking, positive thinking, all cognitive thinking, cognitive therapies, which almost all of the psychologies believe in a definition of thinking not as spiritual. Sid saw that it was spiritual. It was before time, space, and matter. And all you have to do is just consider that, and it will fill up the gap. There's a gap, and no one in psychology has ever, they can't fill up the gap because they're in the wrong paradigm. Just the same as astronomers were in the paradigm of a motionless Earth, and the sun was a planet. that paradigm was not true.
Right.
It had never been true and can never be true. When they got that sorted, and that the Earth was a planet and the moon was not a planet, it was a moon of the Earth. When they got all the the paradigm, when they saw the Earth, I mean the sun-centered paradigm, all of a sudden, all these problems completely disappeared because they were errors in conception, errors in, they were the wrong, we were living in the wrong we thought we were living in the wrong solar system. We weren't, but we thought we were. And in the same way, the psychological issues that people face now, we believe in them because of the way we've looked at it. We've looked at it from a material paradigm, not a spiritual one.
Okay, so then in closing, you're saying that for a person who's had a lot of traumas, who
Yes.
absolutely does not detect any cognitive thinking, just
Yes.
suddenly they are their body is viscerally
Yes.
in a vise of fear. You are sharing with me that is because there is spiritual thinking going on that is sliding them into that place of fear.
It's their paradigm. They're in the wrong paradigm. And so we teach, if you teach the paradigm, if you understand the paradigm first.
I do.
Well, I don't think you really do. I'm sorry to say that. I don't
Okay.
think you, like, you're asking a good question, and don't mean to, I'm not trying to
I
discourage you,
understand
but-
the paradigm to the best of my ability.
Well, it's not my paradigm. It's a true paradigm. It's like when they discovered that the sun was the center of the solar system. It wasn't my sun is the center of my solar system. The sun is the center of the solar system. So it wasn't like, it was never personal to Sid what he discovered. He never said, this is my paradigm. He never said this was my theory, because he knew it to be true. And so if you listen carefully to his recordings, he's saying that this is the way it is. And when you see it, it will calm you down, because when you're searching and you're trying to figure it out, which God bless people who suffer fear. I've had hundreds and hundreds of cases of people who suffer fears of one sort or the other. And when they see where it's coming from, it stops they're not confused anymore by their experience. They become integrated rather than disconnected and struggling. And we all have that. And so the person that has obsessive compulsive disorder, let's say, is really no different than you or me. They just have gotten a label because of the disability, that they have fear as a condition and a diagnosis. So they're regarded as, well, they're not like us. There's somebody who has had these traumas. So we search to explain it by looking into their past. And that was another thing that's really firmly established, that the past is, you will never find the answers in the past. The answer to wisdom is going to be in the present moment. It's not, the past is just a memory. And looking in the past for traumas or not traumas, you'll never make it, because it's not in the it's not in that paradigm. The paradigm of the past is over. And if you work with people, as I have, when they see that, all the like for myself too, I had traumas from my past, and I had abuses, and I had bad things happen to me. And when I saw how the paradigm worked, they still happened. I haven't, you know, it's not to say I'm whitewashing them, but the energy went out of them because the confusion went out. The paradigm explained something that I had been trying to figure out for my whole life. But he did it from such an opposite place that I ever imagined, that it was true, and it removed the confusion. So all of my energy about what my mother did, or what the boys in the playground did, or whatever, it all the energy went off of it. It didn't matter anymore. It didn't hold any confusion. It was, the answers were provided, and that's what happens to people. You know, because there are many people probably on this call that have worked with people with the principles, and when they're successful, they accept that there's really nothing wrong with life. They just were confused, and they thought there was something wrong, and it was an itch they couldn't scratch, and it just tormented them. It tormented me too, until I saw how it worked. And now I'm not a victim anymore.
Thank you.
And so you're not trying to differentiate between this type of thought and that type of thought. You're trying to differentiate between single paradigm or dual paradigm.
A split paradigm.
Split paradigm. So it's actually, you're looking for in a different place to see what's going on.
Mm.
I was driving to Seattle. I had the most insecure feeling. It was about 5 years ago. Most insecure feeling I've ever had in my life. I immediately start checking my gauges. Is my car burning up? Is there something, you know, I just check all my gauges. Everything's fine. I check all the rear view mirrors. Everything's mine. I sit up really high in my seat. I check all what I can see up ahead. Is there a wreck? You know, what's going on? And then I settled back down, and then I checked them all again because I just so severely felt like something was wrong and that I was in danger. And I looked at them all very carefully, checked them all, you know, and I thought, I absolutely don't see anything wrong here. What's going on? And then it really tickled me. It was like, oh, I had to have thought myself here, because that's the one way I work. I knew that. And that was just, I thought, this is how knowing the principles can really help you out in life. I don't have to keep thinking about this, make up what's wrong, make up why I got insecure, all that. I just know I have, and then I thought, well, what was I thinking? You know, which would have been a reasonable thing to think. I had no idea. Nothing came to mind, which was cosmically humorous to me. And I thought, well, good on me. You know, this lets me see that the principles are extremely helpful to people about how they view the world. Because I got in the right period. Once I was in the right paradigm, nothing was a problem anymore. Does that help at all?
Thank you. I appreciate I appreciate it. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks for your question.
Thank
we
you.
really, we really appreciate it. I'm sure it's been helpful for other people on the call too. It's a
May I?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. I like to add my 2 cents to that conversation. It's a very interesting one, and to empathise with everyone. That's a question I've been grappling with myself as I was learning about the principles. So I can understand the difficulty in what's the principle of thought, what did it mean, what are the implications it has for my life or for everybody else, for people who are struggling, going through trauma, all that kind of thing. And again, the diagram kind of helped me out here, but now there's nothing you cannot put on the diagram. So, and I thought just for a bit of fun, but I didn't realize how big it was for me. What I did was that on the diagram, I put the principle of thought on both sides of the diagram. Okay, which sounds like a paradox, but if you really see it, it's not a paradox anymore. So when I started seeing it, I realized that what I'm feeling is my thinking about the principle of thought. Right? And I realized, oh, the power of thought isn't my thinking. It's something that brings my thinking to life. So when I'm thinking about thought, I will be feeling my thinking about thought. And my feeling isn't coming from thought as thinking content, it's coming from the spiritual power called thought. So when I start, that kind of did a couple of things for me. One is that it got me away from coming up with ideas about what the principle of thoughts are, which would then lead into concept, ideas, beliefs, and it wouldn't look like that to me, but I will be carrying them with me. Right? So, but when I started to see that the principle of thought isn't really something I can think about, but rather than an underlying foundation in which creates my own mental life, then I'm like, oh, there's something deeper here. Right? They're kind of the direction that I was looking at from looking at the principle of thought, at the concept, idea, or belief, to something a little bit more mysterious, something more spiritual, something more intangible, if you like. But there's something there. Right? And once you find that, then it's like, oh, see how it's helping you out, because there's a lot of wisdom there, there's a lot of intelligence there, there's a lot of common sense there. It's like, maybe the deeper identity that Bill was speaking about at the beginning. I think that's where the true identity is, not my ideas about true identity. So seeing the distinction between the principle of thought as you're thinking and the principle of thought as it actually is, in my opinion, it has done for me. Will go some way to helping you to find the way forward for you.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for that clarity and for the nuances of that you presented, that you shared with me. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. It's a different way to think, isn't it? It's a different paradigm. You're welcome. Anyone else have a comment or a question? It's so nice to see all your faces.
Yes, I'm keen to get Gil into the conversation. He's had his hands raised for quite a while.
Okay. Hi, Gil.
Oops. Hi, Valdo. Hi, Keith. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
By the way, we're getting a blizzard here in Boulder, where I live, Boulder, Colorado. So we have,
We heard there
if my
was
power goes out.
6 feet of snow.
Up in the mountains, they do. We've got about 20 inches here now where I am. And so it's interesting, to say the least. Is there an inside out way of shoveling snow? I guess I want to find out about that.
I don't know about shoveling it. Yeah.
Of course there is.
Yeah, of course there is.
I'm so thankful you have a shovel.
Yeah.
Better to stay inside.
Yeah, stay inside.
Someone melts. Yeah. Yeah.
Relevant and connected, I think, with what we've just been talking about. I actually heard, listening to a recording with Sydney a few weeks ago, and I've heard him say this before. I guess I've seen it written before too, about not listening to the words, but listening beyond the words or past the words. And sometimes I think I was even trying to do that when you all were just talking and listening to your words and trying to listen beyond that. I think I get it sometimes, but I'd be interested in what your take is on that. I mean, even having been in his presence, were you able to listen beyond his words? And does that work again with when I'm listening to other people too? So how do you do that? How do you listen beyond the words?
Well, it really helped me to kind of before that was his logic that you're looking for the wisdom of the ages and you're not looking for intellectual ideas. And so, and he said you can think intellectual ideas, but you can't find the wisdom through that. And that wisdom would be found only in the present moment. Well, that really helped me because I realized when you're thinking about it, when I'm thinking from my intellect, I'm comparing and analyzing and looking at I'm word bound. But because it's in the moment that what he was enlivening and talking about and sharing, that modality of thinking, just exactly what Brett was talking about too, of thinking about the speech or thinking about the words. When you're thinking about something, that's not what Sid would call listening. When you're doing that, you're in the past, listening for wisdom. You can't find, and he was just very clear about that, very simple. You can't find wisdom in the thinking about the past. So, and that was one of the first problems that I encountered when I met him, because he was just adamant about that. And I thought, well, aren't you making a little bigger deal? Like the past is it's an important concept to psychology, but I didn't know what to do with people to not talk about their past. But he was just emphatic about that. And it made me, over time, it made me question, well, maybe he's got a point. And then when I heard that you're looking for wisdom, you're looking for common sense, you're looking for truth, and truth cannot be found in your personal memory of concepts or beliefs, which like, well, okay. So therefore don't use that modality when listening. So I could just I slowly began to be able to just listen, and listen to him then taught me to listen to my child or my wife, or I could listen without thinking, without personally processing. And that's what he was talking about. And that's what he'd say, all you have to do is listen. He said, don't listen to me, listen to life, listen to anyone, just listen. But the listening he was speaking about was the suspension of my ego mind thinking. And when you listen from on those terms, um, you're present, you relax, you still hear, but you're not thinking and arguing and intellectual.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to do, I mean, that, just as you were saying that, I mean, I often will compare when I'm listening to things in my own life again. And I guess that immediately makes it the past.
That's called not listening.
Yes. Listening.
And most of the time we think we're listening when we're actually not listening.
Yeah.
You know, if you can make the difference, draw a line there for yourself. I would recommend that to anyone. That, which is fine to do. You can not listen. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but I'm saying it's not listening. It's not listening. Make it, draw a distinction, and you'll soon find new things. You'll find new ways of being present in the moment without thinking. And you're going to be really happy that you found that.
Mhm.
You know, that's going to really, and that's going to take you places that listening, because when you're listening, your ego's talking. Yak, 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 yak. It's like you're processing. You're not really, you can't listen. No one can. That's the opposite of listening. That's thinking from your own subjective little pea brain.
And there's a lot of things that you notice. It's like when I would have a lot of repetitive thinking, it would dawn on me, oh, this is not listening, what I'm doing right now. This is me questioning. And so I started getting my own tells as to what I was doing. And it was extremely helpful. And just even in the present, I started being able to tell if I was doing present thinking, or if I was doing future thinking, or if I was doing memory thinking. And it got to where I could just be going along. It's like, oh, I'm not in the present moment now. And just, I knew it so clearly, and it was so helpful to take me out of that, because it was interesting, you know. But to just be able just to drop the thinking about it, and not be, it's what was that thing that I said in that one paper? Do you remember that it was, if you knew something wasn't true, it was a lot easier to quit thinking about it. So there's all this help that it'll come to you in insight. And Sid, that's how he learned. He learned through insight. And he never suggested it was any other way, which was great. What a teacher. And then I thought, okay, so I want to start trusting insight here. And I just started off really small with the small stuff. I didn't know enough about it to do it on the big stuff.
Is it safe to say that when you listen in this way, that you're more open to insight?
I think so.
Oh, absolutely.
Your mind's so much quieter.
Insight has a gauntlet of antagonisms to make it through. It's really hard. It's non-porous. It's like porcelain trying to get water through porcelain. Good luck. You know, it just doesn't accept it, because it has an antagonism to it. The ego is the antagonist. It's the only antagonist that humanity suffers from. Is ego, and it's just it because it. But there's a way underneath it, or a way to suspend it. You don't have to get rid of it. You can't really get rid of it because it's a capability, but you can suspend it, and that's called the suspension of the ego. Is what you call, one of his terms for it was listening, or fact, or truth. He would use terms, but those terms were not ego based. You know, they were like listening. It was his most common one, but it was really helpful for me. Like I know I'm listening. You know, I can use it more often. Not to say I don't ruminate and I don't antagonize, you know, and I don't get lost in my thinking. It happens to me every day. I was talking to Brett once, and he was visiting here once, and he says something like, well, I said something like, oh, I go outside in all the time. And he was like, you know? And I said, oh yeah. And I said, at least several hundred times a day. And he was flabbergasted that I would admit that, but it was true. It still is true. So you don't have to not ever think again, you know, or not ever get lost in your ego thinking, mind thinking thing again, because that's just you can do it. You know, you can do it, but you're not going to find wisdom there. You're going to find yourself there, and your own limited pea-brain thinking. That's what I find there. And that's what you find there too. That's not so the outside in on our diagram here, that's our designation or way of saying that that's an illusion. And so we say the illusion of three paradigms, that's an illusion. And the mixed is when you're bouncing back and forth. That's not it either. We use that little metaphor of when surgeons found germs, the surgeons that had been raised without and educated without germs, they didn't like the concept of germs. So they said to their maids, okay, give us a clean apron. Okay, we'll delegate it to the nurses to wash the instruments, but we're not washing our hands. Well, that's like saying, you know, today it would be like saying, okay, we'll talk about the principles, but it's not.
It's not 100% thing.
Yeah, it's not 100%. Well, no, germs are 100%. Like, you got to really deal with germs if you're going to cut on people and they have injuries and such. Otherwise, you kill people. And Sid was very adamant about that. He said, if you're doing that, you're infecting people with misunderstanding, with the past, and the answer will never be found. It can't. It's not in there. But when I heard him say that in a little dialogue that somewhere, that you, and then someone said, well, if you can't understand it by thinking, why bother explaining it? And he said, well, look, I just talk about it in the hope that people listening might have their own encounter with their own wisdom. And then they'll hear what I'm saying. So he's not saying I'm imparting wisdom to you. He's saying, please listen, please don't think and analyze, which most people, dare I say, most people did. Most people came to see him and they would walk away and he would think, you know, I'm never going to see you again. And it broke his heart because he knew they were within an inch of the truth. And they couldn't really, they didn't know how to really accept it, listen to it. They refuted it. And so they went, and he was just another visitation point along their search, but they didn't really find what they were really looking for. And he knew what they were looking for, but he couldn't give that to them. They had to listen so that they would encounter the truth. So that's the way that works. And you could hope that it doesn't work that way or think that it should work some other way, but it doesn't. He was really crystal clear about that, which has been very helpful for all of us.
Just in talking about the past, I didn't really know what to do about that. I mean, I could hear him talking, but I didn't see any action for myself. But when I saw the principles as a paradigm, huge chunks of my thinking about the past just fell off. I didn't even know I was doing them. And they fell away, and I thought, well, this is nice. It didn't matter anyway. And it wasn't a struggle, and it wasn't a doing. It was just, I don't know, and that passage of going from 80% true, the principles are, to 100% true, there's a lot that happens. And it's not by your will. That's what's waiting there for you or anybody, which is great. And I didn't even have a traumatic past. I had this really lovely past. Oh, wasn't that a nice party? I had a wonderful time. Did you see what Susan was wearing? I mean, you know, and the food. I mean, this is the best I could come up with. It just was so obvious that it didn't matter and that I didn't need to keep doing that. It was, you know what I ended up finding out? That it was really a very egotistical way that I thought about the past, because it meant that I was the kind of person who got to go to parties like that and have friends like that and eat food like that and wear clothes like that. But I didn't know I was going to run into that at all. And that was very helpful to me. You never know. You don't know what you're going to find. You find out who you're not, which is cool. Oh, Brett keeps trying to tell us something, and I start talking every time. Okay, Brett.
I would like Keith to share one particular encounter that you had with Sid. At first, it might not sound related to listening, but for me, it did. Okay, so Keith, would you mind saying what happened when Sid asked you, what is the universe made of?
Keith.
Was it? Yeah. I don't know. That doesn't.
You know, new thoughts of galaxies and all that, you know.
Okay.
Brett.
Okay, but okay. So before Sid died, he spoke with Keith, right? And Sid said, "You know what the universe is made of, right?" And then Kate was thinking about, oh, there's the planet, there's the galaxy, there's the stars, there's the physical universe, shall we say, the material universe. And Kate knew in his mind that it was like, I think knowing instead who going this way rather than this way. Remember? And then Steve said, the universe is made of knowledge. And it was in that point I realized, wow, that's a lot of knowledge. How much of that knowledge did I know? I would not be able to see the gap between that. But I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot more to life than I think there is. I mean, there's so much more knowledge that can come to us as a thought in the moment. And I'm like, suddenly I'm more interested in that than using all this, all the collections of thought that I built up over the course of my lifetime. And I'm like, so knowing that was a possibility, I'm like, okay, let's have a look in that direction and see what's there. Oh, I didn't know it was there. Oh, I didn't know that was a great thought. And it did a lot for me. So, so the idea the universe is made of knowledge is something I hold very dear to me.
Well, yeah. It's a whole nother, like, because I think it's so small-minded of us, you know. Who am I? Well, I'm Keith. And what's the universe? Well, it's the planets and the stars and the circumstances and situations. So there's the physical and there's the psychological. But when you said knowledge, it just blew that up. Like, it was like, oh, that was a whole nother, it wasn't subject object anymore. It was one giant ball of wisdom and the unknown. And what a glorious universe it is. You know, you can see those unfathomable spaces a bit, and that could kind of give you a hint of it. But seeing it as knowledge was just, it just blew up. And I thought, we are travelers in this, you know, incredible life, and we'll never get to the end of it. And everybody gets to have their own experience of it based on their use of these principles, and that's endless. It's not your lifetime, short as whatever that is. It's just an insignificant you know, piece of sand, and that piece of sand belongs on a beach, and which belongs to all the other beaches. It's, I mean, I could say those things, but I mean, the experience of that is just so humbling, yet so inviting and so comforting that it's mental. It makes a beautiful mental health.
And the stuff that comes to mind is so much more interesting than your little stuff. It's so easy to look away from it. It's like, oh, I didn't know this could be coming to mind. Well, I find this very interesting. And one guy asked me one time, he says, well, we were teaching, and he says, well, Val, what about me? I said, oh, it is so cool. I said, you're going to go off your mind. And I said, and you're going to love it. I thought, oh, what a silly question. You know, he couldn't help it. That's what he was thinking about. And I tried to be as nice as I could be about it, but I thought, just you wait. I was nice about it, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I thought I was, yeah. At first I started to
No,
go
you were very
ballistic,
nice.
and then I thought, calm down.
It's not about you
Yeah.
at all. Isn't that?
Yeah.
Think of that. Then you can just dance and
Yeah.
just enjoy, because the loss of that pretense, of that false identity, it's just beautiful. That little self just imprisons us in some struggle, and it's it's nothing. So when Sid went through this experience, he says he died to this world in a moment. He died, and he saw that his little, who he thought he was, died. And he said that's what happens in enlightenment, is that there's an ego death. But he said, don't even search for that. Just know that that's what's going to fall away, is just this ego ignorance of a false identity. And you're truly, truly, truly a part of this great love. As you understand that, you have to become more at peace, more accepting, more loving, and you can really enjoy your life rather than just try and work and think. And so you can still do what you want to do. Like he did all the things that he enjoyed doing or wanted to do, but he wasn't searching, or he wasn't suffering. So we can all live and age and pay our bills and whatever, but we can have a twinkle in our eye, and because you're part of a greater whole.
That's how you shovel that snow inside out.
Yeah.
Go give it a try.
Yeah.
And it's so nice. You don't have to think about, how do I quit thinking about the past? It's going to fall off. You couldn't stop it if you tried. And you're going to love it when it does. We're not actually bright enough to make it go away on our own. We like to think we are. Compared to what happens, it's not about you getting it done.
It reminds me of a joke. A little boy dies and goes to, I guess he goes to hell. And so Satan gives them this assignment to clean out this huge barn, and it's completely filled to the brim with horse manure. And the devil comes back, and little boy's just in there shoveling away and singing and having such a great time. And this is not good for the devil. The devil doesn't really like that scene, but so he comes back a while later. The little boy's still shoveling and whistling, and so the devil interrupts him and says, what is it? What's the big deal here? Like, why are you having such a good time? He says, are you kidding? Are you kidding? He says, with all this horse manure here, there's bound to be a pony in there somewhere. So that's how you shovel
Snow.
Shovel the snow, Gil.
Look for the pony or a reindeer. How's that?
A reindeer. Okay, a reindeer. Yeah. Or a snowman. There's bound to be a snowman hidden in there somewhere.
Might find your car.
Yeah, but isn't life? If you see that, life becomes like a joy I mean, it's different. It's different without your insecurities and doubts and fears and problems and issues and judgments and
I used to hear people say this, and it just would sort of make me mad. Uh, is that they would say, "Oh, I don't have any problems anymore," and I thought, "Oh, shut up," you know. And but then as I started seeing more things that I used to hate to do, I was having a great time doing them. And with the book work, I was getting so much better at being organized that I loved. I had things set up that helped me, and it was fun to do. And the things that I don't know what's going to happen, which there's plenty of that in life, I don't think of it as a problem. I think of it as, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens next. And I literally, I know enough about insight that I know that something that I haven't yet thought of, that maybe nobody has ever yet thought of, is going to come to me, and it's going to work out fine. And I we have a 34-year-old daughter, and she grew up around this. She is just solution oriented. She doesn't she doesn't dwindle in what's wrong. She knows an insight's coming. I love to watch her.
yeah.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes. I'd like to, there are 3 people at the moment who have their hands raised, so let's see
Okay.
how we do.
Okay.
First of all, David, would you like to come on and share your question, please? If it's a question.
Or comment, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
Where
Hello.
are
Hello.
Hi.
You can, hi. I'm that man, by the way. You once referred to me on another town hall. I was so amused by that. Thank you. I put in the chat what I wanted to share with you, and that is that I discovered something called you might call it intentional breathing. It's not very hard, and there's different schools of it, but this morning I did a class with about 150 people, whatever it was, online, and we were all breathing together for about 37 minutes. And I just, at the end of that, I was just totally blissed out. I was aware, without attachment, if you like, and I really had the experience of no thought, which was such a burden removed, and it is something so simple. And I think it sort of ties up nicely with everything that people have talked about today, So my invitation is check it out. It's called Alchemy of Breath, or Breathe the World. You can Google it, and you can try it. It's free. So that's basically what I wanted to share, this is where I've sort of come to, having discovered the 3 principles, and this is where I've landed at the moment, like breathing. It's simple. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I must say, however, I must say that because I had so many encounters with Sid that he would say, look, if you make because the principles are not of this world, they're not of behavior. To say that they're that they need a technique is to say that it's not inside. And I'm telling you right now, it is inside. So that was really, sometimes it was disconcerting for people to realize that because you do get, I know with such a method, you get high and everybody gets high, but just consider that the principles are not, they are beyond time, space, and matter. And so just consider that's where the where you go beyond methods, techniques, processes, procedures, prescriptions. It's not, those are in the world of methodologies, and the principles are not of that ilk. They're not methodologies. All the methodologies are of the principles, but the principles are not of the methodologies. That makes sense. So there's something grander, greater, more that can't be contained within a prescription. So or a technique, so that a technique is it just necessarily has a built-in doing to it, because that's what it is. It's a doing, do that, and you'll get this benefit. But principles don't really pertain to that paradigm. They pertain to another completely different truth. The truth. So individuals can argue about, I do this and you should do that, and you can go back and forth. But the truth that Sid was talking about is it's where everybody's truth is the same, and that's what you're really looking for. But and I know it might sound difficult, but it's not. It's the simplest thing in the universe. But it allows for all of us to have our experiences and our methods and our techniques, but not be did not prescribe them, because every technique, of course, it's not possible for techniques to be the answer. The answer is simpler, but there's a thing called Occam's razor, that often the answer is simple. There's an ultimate simplicity in the principles that cannot be missed. So I want to say.
Oh, I want to say something.
Okay.
I want to say that I didn't know what I would learn from Sid talking about that. I thought, I wonder what you're trying to teach us. I don't get it. And I just, I really wanted him just to go ahead and tell us how to do it. Come on, Sid, just tell us. And he just wouldn't do it. He didn't believe in it. He didn't have it to do. That isn't how he learned. But in learning from him, I learned about this great possibility of relaxation, that it wasn't going to depend on me to do something to change. Now, that was new to me. And it was the hardest thing that I had to do, was to not do something. And once again, the relaxation I have had in my life you can see the difference. You can tell the difference. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Oh, and I taped Oprah's Super Soul Sunday back in I don't know, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And then I got about 25 of them, and I thought, I'm going to watch them. Let me see what this is about. And somebody would have had a phenomenal experience for the first 45 minutes of the show, and I would just be, oh, this is so cool. I loved it. And the last 15 minutes, they told you what to do to have that happen to you. And I thought, that isn't how it happened to them. Why did they make up a way that it happened? And I just, I watched a couple more and thought, well, I can get that off of my whatever it is, DVR. And that was great for me. I was thrilled that I could see that. I thought, oh, what's the last 15 minutes going to be here? They can tell you how to do it. And
when you, like Sid said it once in 2 sentences, he said, mental sickness, which we all know about, is created when you put feelings onto objects. But he said, if you could see the objects, the second sentence, you can see the objects without the feelings, you're healthy. And he was just, man, he was a stickler for that. And it blew my mind how strong he was about that. And there are many, many encounters I have to share about that, but it was like, but think about it for yourself, for anyone, that there's nothing you do. I mean, you can do what you do, but it's not, but the answer is not in that paradigm.
and I'm a swimmer and I love to swim, and I get all sorts of creative ideas, just tons. And so it looks like I should go out and tell people they should swim. I don't do it. I've never done it. There's going to be a lot of people, swimming's not going to work for them at all. Not going to be their cup of tea. And so I just so appreciate that he did that. And he had to do it a lot. And he always stepped up and said something.
But I think that's the value for humanity of an enlightened being who sees so far beyond and attest to something. If we can listen to it, we can really, he says, you can save yourself lifetimes of searching.
And he said, look, if you're a walker and you like to walk, go walk. If you're a runner, you like to run, go run. You like to bicycle, go bicycle. If you like to swim, go swim. But you don't want to attach it to the principles in any way.
So what else did someone ask, Brett, or someone had to say?
We have, I hope I pronounced your name right, Mordechai.
Mordecai. Yeah. Where are you?
Yes. Mordechai, that's right.
Mordecai, yes. Hello.
How are you? Thank you
I'm
so
good.
much. Beautiful,
you?
everything. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask you, I've been in the 3 principles for 3 years already, and I went to a few seminars where you spoke, both of you. And for a year and a half, I was like living in a different space, and it was beautiful. And the past 6 weeks, I went back into intellectual. I went back into thinking, and back to the anxiety, and back to the thought, and back to the trying to get out of it. And I just can't find my way back to where I was. It's already like 6-7 weeks like this.
Yeah, where did that
So I
go?
wanted to hear your advice. Yeah, like where did it go? Exactly. I wake up every morning looking to see where did it go.
I remember that in the beginning of learning, the first, say, 10 years or something, but it gets less and less.
Really?
It really does, especially when you know just one thing. Do I think I'm feeling something that's happening to me from circumstances, other people, the past, the future, whatever?
Or even this loss, the objectification of this, I had this and now I don't have it, that becoming a problem or becoming an object in that you're now trying to get out of, that, the objectification of that will, when you see that that's what you're lost in, you can drop it in a second, or it'll drop itself off because you realize you're just in an illusion of the outside in, the whole thing.
How do you see that thought? Not when it comes to outside, it's like so easy for me to but when it comes to my own thinking, my own perception, that's when I get lost again. That's when is that me? Is that not me? That's when I start trying to fix and going back and I had it. I want to get it. It's like, it becomes like a type of obsession.
Yeah.
I'll ask myself, where do I think my feelings are coming from? And it's not that hard to tell. I mean, literally. And there's times we have, in that we're married, that we'll have the same problem we're working on. And at some point, one of us might say, do you think we're outside in? And then the other one will seriously consider it. It's like, that's what's going on. We're just outside in. Or we might think, and do you think we're inside out? And we'll reflect on it. And it's like, we are inside out. This is a good endeavor,
Okay.
So that's what,
Okay.
I don't know what you would say you do, Keith, but that's what I do.
I think there's kind of a danger when you're outside in and you believe that you're onto something, or you don't realize, oh, I'm not inside out. You're in this episode, no matter how long it lasts or doesn't last, it's you're outside in. That's all
Okay.
it is.
Okay. I hear very perfect. I hear.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Mordecai. Yeah. So anyone, there was one other person, Brett?
The person actually lowered their hand, but I'm going to give them the opportunity if you want to come online anyway. Mark, it was you that had your hand raised. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to give the other guys the opportunity. It was a bit, as I did speak the last few times. I just wanted to say that. Can you hear me, by the way? Because my mic never works.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, I mean, when the lady spoke before about the feeling and how, and you explained it spiritual short. She kind of was trying to understand what, you're trying to explain that it wasn't intellectual thought, it was the power of thought. And I mean, I see that now just so clearly. It's like, for me, it's like you have a lamp, you have light coming out. There's got to be something inside the lamp that's giving that light. I know there's no way that something outside is going to make an emotion, because it's like in a car, something happens in the car, or there's a noise or a sound, it's coming from the car. It's like, I don't know, it's for me, it's very clear. And when I talk to people, it's just like obviously it's like that. Like how can it come from outside? How can something outside come into your body and create an emotion? Like, yeah. It's like, I mean, putting Wi-Fi aside, but like the new technology, but you can't have a machine function if something inside didn't make it function. It's like our emotions are in our body, and there's a power, there's like electricity. That's how I see it. It's electricity in a way, for the best way we can put it. Yeah. And actually, I mean, I took the vaccine. I mean, the British vaccine is terrible. Sorry, it gives you horrible side effects, and it helps you to grow as well in the principle, which is good. But to learn more, and I did learn more. I had terrible side effects, and I mean, my mother, I thought I was having a heart attack. I'd never felt like that in my life, and I was panicking. The ambulance came, and I had hope because I thought it was a vaccine, but really that was the problem. And they did all the tests, they did the oxygen, they did everything, the blood pressure. Said everything's fine. And then I thought, and then he starts telling me, stop, breathe, calm down, think of a beach. And I thought, no. I know where you're heading now. You're heading into psychology. I know how to deal with this. And I really sat for about 15 minutes. This was the most intense pain I've ever had in my life. I sat for about 15 minutes really thinking, can the vaccine make me frightened? It can do anything to my body. It can harm my legs. It can do anything. I don't believe it will, but a lot of people do, and whatever. I don't know, medicine can harm the body, but my nature is not going to be affected. My perception of life is not going to be affected by that. And then it all disappeared like within seconds. I still had the pain. I still had headaches. I still had everything. By the way, I was going to take 12 painkillers. I don't know what they call in America, Tylenol, because the pain was so bad that I was willing to go to hospital to get it taken out and to do the whole detox and everything, just to have, I thought whatever pain I get from 12 painkillers will be better than this. But thankfully, within 15, 20 minutes, it's all gone. I have the pain, but I'm at peace with it. I have I had the sickness and the immune response, but yeah. So I just see this really, it's just getting, it's so clear, like, it's life-changing. And I'm sharing it with people, and I shared it with someone that off their meds, they've been on it for 40 years. I'm not, obviously they're going to a doctor and everything, but I really help them and they're just seeing, it's from your insight about thought creates feeling, that where do I think my experience is coming from? And that's how I talk to people about it, my friends, and they really hear it. They really hear it. They really, it's incredible how, this person was struggling with the kidneys. The doctor said either your kidneys get damaged, or and you have mental health, or you go off the pill, go off the lithium, and you have kidneys. And this is, it's a horrible decision to have to make, like really horrible. Do I want my kidneys? And that's really the decision, because it's so overwhelming. And all it takes is one insight. And she realized I don't need, it's not a question of my mental health, because my mental health is there. The kidneys, I can go off the pill now because I have mental health. So I don't need the pill. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So where do you live, Mark?
I live in London.
You live in London. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just down across the pond, yeah.
Across the pond, yeah.
Plus the USA till the West Coast, I guess.
Very much, yeah.
So it was wonderful to see everybody, and thanks for your questions, your offerings, your sharing.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. What a wonderful town hall. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
We'll have another town hall meeting in 2 months. We'll do it every 2 months here on in. And so over the next couple of months, take care, be well, stay healthy, and all the very best. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.